Right, hello, we've got the red Ensetes here in frame. So we've got two here, obviously looking a bit wind battered. They're in quite an exposed position, so they have shredded a bit, but yeah, still looking okay. Still pushing out new growth at the minute, so I won't be cutting these back just yet, but I have cut back my green Ensete, so let's have a look at that. So the leaves are here. I'll get my shadow out the way. So they're the sort of size of leaves. They're probably 3 foot long, foot across. So they're the leaves off, and this is the main corm or pseudo stem, if you like. So all I've done is cut all the leaves off, pulled back any dried dead around the edges. I did sort of cut the leaves off, but then I decided to cut it a bit shorter and flat. You can see, since I've cut it yesterday, it's actually the centre has started to push out a little bit. So we'll get that out the sun and keep it somewhere cool, so I don't want to keep growing. The reason why I thought I'd cut it back flat, which I don't normally do, is this freeze of storing it upside down to let the water run out. So I may have gone a bit too low down. I'd normally leave a little bit more, so probably good practice is to start at the base and cut the leaves off, and probably leave maybe a foot at the pseudo stem. But yeah, I've got about, I don't know, 10 inches there, and I've cut most of the roots off. As you can see, I've left it as that. I did hose it down to try and get some of the muck off, but I'm going to let that dry out, and that should flake off in time on its own, and the roots themselves will dry up and shrivel, and I'll cut them back. It's a bit dodgy cutting them right back to start with, I think, just due to the fact that you might start, it's quite a tight root ball there, and if you go too far down you might start cutting the pseudo stem and might hinder it growing next year. So I'm going to put this somewhere out of the sun but dry, leave it outside, let it drain out, let it dry out a bit. So probably over the next couple of weeks let it really dry out. We'll flake off all the soil and any really bad sort of like that, any dried up bits, trim back the roots nice and tight to the base, and yeah, just let that dry out probably for a couple of weeks. And then what I'll do at that point is I normally cardboard box or paper bag, something that can breathe a little bit. You don't want it sweating. If you put it in a plastic box or something like that, obviously that'd hold in the moisture, so you want it to be able to dry out, and just sort of check on it maybe every couple of weeks, make sure there's no rot setting in. So last year this particular green Ensete I potted up last year and kept in the greenhouse because it's a bit small, but that's bulked up enough now to dry store. So these red Ensetes, I've done the same for them for the last 2 or 3 years. Cut them back to this sort of state, bag them. So I tend to use paper bags, or if you've got a big enough box you can do that. Stack them close to each other but with gaps in between, so you know they're not touching so much to avoid rotting, and a little bit of airflow. And I've actually kept these, first year I kept them in the shed, which is absolutely fine because it's quite dark over winter in there and quite cool, it didn't get freezing. They went through quite nicely. Last year I had them in the conservatory. Like I say, as long as you can keep them dark, they will tolerate quite a cool temperature. So I'd say the conservatory probably didn't get below 4 degrees. But again, you could use a loft or a cool cupboard. Somewhere dark and cool is the main thing. You don't want them growing or trying to grow over winter. Yeah, so that's about it. I mean, I am quite surprised. I mean, I cut this yesterday, late afternoon, so we had a fairly cold night last night. I think it went down to about 4 or 5 degrees, so I'm surprised it's started to push that much already. But yeah, so I'll get that somewhere cool and dry, plenty of airflow, let that dry out, and then I'll probably do an update on that after I've done the reds as well. I'll keep the reds for another couple of weeks, and then we'll dry them all out and have them together, and I'll show you how I bag them up and whatnot. Okay, thanks for watching, see you on the next one.